I'll miss you, Olivia said. You can always cancel the trip, he replied. Olivia sighed. You know I'd rather be here with you and the girls, but I'm so close to making this deal I can taste it. If I pull it off, it will mean another $250,000 bonus. This will be the second one this year. Think of all the fun we could have. It was Steven's turn to sigh. Years of experience told him that arguing with her or asking her what they needed more money for was useless. He'd once been the biggest earner in their family, but that time was long gone. Now Olivia was easily overtaking him. She was ambitious, driven to succeed. For her, it wasn't about money. It wasn't even about negotiating. She looked at a victim, identified their weaknesses, and then strategized how to exploit them. She was a hunter. It was all about winning. It was all about the deal. Always about the deal. Even if one deal was on the line, she was already planning the next one. I know. I also know you'll succeed. You have the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold. Olivia laughed. The Midas touch. I like that. Not a bad asset for a merchant banker, is it? In response, Stephen kissed his wife's neck. At the sound of Olivia's clicking heels, Stephen poured coffee, black with one. He set the cup on a vacant spot on the kitchen counter and winked at his 6-year-old daughters. They giggled. What are you two weirdos laughing about? Olivia asked, kissing each of them on the top of their heads and sitting them down on the bar stool next to Haley. At you, Mummy, Hannah replied, giggling. Yeah, Haley picked up on that. Daddy says you can't do anything until you've had your coffee. Olivia paused, and the rim of her cup rested against her lower lip for a moment. Then she pulled it away without taking a sip and twirled the cup back and forth, eyeing it as if she were seeing it for the first time. Haley and Hannah giggled, snacking on their cereal. I think your dad may very well be right, Olivia said, suppressing a smile. I think I'd better have a cup or who's going to braid your hair? Daddy. No. The girls squealed in unison. Daddy's terrible at braiding hair. And last time he forgot our ribbons, Haley added. Oh, the shame, the endless shame of forgotten ribbons, Stephen wailed, dramatically dropping his face in his hands. All the girls laughed at his antics. Stephen turned serious and led his women to follow him. Not for the first time, mentally comparing it to trying to herd chickens. Once the girls started school, which meant Olivia's return to work, Stephen usually got the girls up, dressed, and fed. Olivia would take care of the finishing touches, hair, and ribbons. Unless there were early morning meetings or urgent business, Stephen would drive the girls to school, as Olivia's office was in the opposite direction. Today, when school was on holiday and there was no need to drop his daughters off, Stephen had arranged to take Olivia to the airport to catch a flight to Melbourne. She and several other major banking figures were negotiating a deal with a large multinational corporation that was potentially worth millions. The girls would spend the day at the zoo with Mrs. Foster. Mrs. Foster was a godsend who had been with them since the girls were born. Stephen had at first disapproved of the idea of hiring someone to help Olivia take care of the daughters and the house, as he himself had grown up in a working-class family with a stay-at-home mother. But Olivia had insisted. If she had to take a career break to look after the girls, she wanted to improve her education at the same time. Since Mrs. Foster lived in her grandmother's flat on the property and took care of most of the cooking and cleaning, Olivia was able to study online, adding an economics degree as well as an MBA to her accounting degree. Stephen readily admitted that his doubts were unfounded. Olivia was a good, though not exactly practical mother, and Mrs. Foster had proved time after time how valuable she was. She cleaned, looked after the girls if they were ill, looked after them after school and holidays, babysat when needed, and cooked delicious and nutritious meals for the whole family on weeknights. Haley and Hannah adored her and considered her a pseudo-grandmother. While Olivia was fixing the girls' hair, Stephen quickly put the breakfast dishes away after them, as he didn't think it was right to leave such things in Mrs. Foster's care. Stephen heard the back door open and smiled. Mrs. Foster was on time as always. After kisses and the usual admonitions to his daughters to be good, cheerful, and do whatever Mrs. Foster ordered, Stephen picked up Olivia's bag and headed for the garage. The bag seemed heavy, but he made no comment. Olivia was Olivia, and he knew she packed for all occasions. The lighting in the garage was dim, but Stephen didn't bother turning on the lights. They wouldn't be long. He shoved the suitcase into the boot of their four-wheeler and then stepped aside to open the passenger door for Olivia. She slipped inside, setting her briefcase and purse on the floor next to her feet. As the garage door slowly rose, Olivia began to mutter, I wonder if that coffee shop, the one with the bikes on the wall on Berkeley Street still exists. I don't know. Maybe it does. It's been 7 years since we left. A lot can happen in that time, Stephen replied grimly. He didn't like being reminded of their time in Melbourne. Olivia continued, oblivious to Stephen's change in mood. I really hope it's still working. They make the best coffee there, and their muffins are simply unrivaled. Olivia laughed. I can even afford to eat one. Ever since the girls were born, Olivia had been fanatical about the amount of carbohydrates she consumed. Her vigilance meant the vigilance of the whole family. Poor Mrs. Foster had to learn new recipes and adapt old ones to make the low-carb dinners Olivia demanded. Stephen made a token attempt at a smile, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Maybe I should try sneaking one of those for you, love. As I recall, you're partial to raspberries, cream cheese, and white chocolate. Yes, partial, Stephen agreed dryly, navigating the local streets on autopilot. But I think you've relieved me of that weakness. Olivia's happy glow faded. She frowned. It lasted for the briefest of moments. Then she brightened. Well, I may have to find a new sin for you. It'll be a surprise. I'm sure it will. Stephen took his foot off the accelerator and slowed down, approaching the junction that would take them out of the quiet suburban neighborhood. Left to the city, right to the airport. When the junction was 30 yards away, Stephen moved the signpost lever down. Change of plans, old chap. Turn left. Stephen and Olivia reacted instinctively to the harsh voice behind them. Olivia shrieked and spun round in her seat towards the voice. Stephen grabbed the steering wheel with both hands and hit the brakes. The car squealed in protest, spun and then braked sharply, causing all the passengers to be thrown forwards and then back into their seats. Who are you? Olivia shouted, looking at the gun pointed at them. What do you want? Shouted Stephen at the same time. One question at a time, guys, the attacker grinned, clearly enjoying their fear and confusion. Who I am is your worst nightmare. What I want is the harder part. You have to ask why. Why do you have to do what I want? Why? Stephen hissed, gripping the steering wheel as if his life depended on it. Actually, the reasons are two. I have a gun. What's the other reason? Oh, that's right. I have your daughters. Olive screamed. Stephen squealed and tried to unbuckle himself, reaching for the intruder. Their captor just sat back and smiled. So, are you little ones done? He asked when Olivia and Stephen finally fell into an awkward silence. How do we know you have our daughters? Stephen asked. Stephen asked. Stephen asked. Stephen asked. They went to the zoo with Mrs. Foster, Olivia added defiantly. Did they? Are you sure about that, Mrs.? The man rubbed his chin and cheeks, ran his fingers over his 3-day growth, and made a low wheezing sound. The sound drew Olivia's attention back to his face. She held her breath. Aside from the sunglasses, he made no attempt to hide his identity. Her stomach clenched. Would she, Stephen, and their daughters survive the day? 2 cars stopped behind them and honked. Better hurry up, turn left. Why? Where are you taking us? When I want to, I'll tell you, the man growled, jabbing his gun into Stephen's side. Now turn left, damn it. Stephen complied with the instruction. Now give me your mobile phones, quickly and slowly. No kidding. He slipped them into his waistcoat pocket. The waistcoat fluffed out. Olivia swallowed hard, her imagination working overtime, imagining what other things he kept in his various pockets. One more thing, he said to Olivia, snapping his fingers. She tried to assume an innocent and confused look. It didn't work. Cut the crap. Mrs., give me your other mobile phone, the one in your briefcase. Olivia lifted the briefcase onto her lap, opened it, and pulled out the phone. She held it out to the man over her shoulder. During this whole incident, she had avoided meeting Stephen's gaze. She felt him shift his gaze from the road to her and back again. His eyes seemed to burn holes in her skin. Do you have a second phone? Stephen's voice was full of anger. Now is not the time to talk about it, Stephen. The man behind him grinned. Yes, Stephen, now is the time. Now is not the time to have a domestic squabble or ask your wife why she has a second phone she didn't tell you about. Stephen looked at the man in the rearview mirror and brightened. Now is the time to do as you're told. I'd hate for something terrible to happen to those sweet girls of yours. You can't take them away. They've been gone all day. They left at the same time we did. There was a note of defiance in Olivia's voice. I don't believe you. You're lying. I am lying, aren't I? The man growled. He raised the phone to eye level, his gaze darting between the screen and Olivia's face. He pressed a few buttons and handed the phone to Olivia. A quick glance at the screen as Olivia took the phone confirmed her worst fears. The man had their home number. How could this be happening? It wasn't on the list. Olivia gasped, trying to catch her breath. She was fighting panic when she heard Mrs. Foster's voice. She wasn't like herself at all. Usually the woman was calm and confident, but not now. Now her voice sounded shaky and hesitant, like she was on the verge of bursting into tears. Olivia felt like someone was squeezing her chest. Hello? Mrs. Foster? It's Olivia. Oh God, I'm so sorry. They have us. Oh my God, they have girls. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop them. Olivia dropped the phone to her lap as if it had burned her and groaned in horror. The sound was piercing, like an animal thrashing in agony. Both men flinched. They want to take them, Stephen. They took the girls, Olivia sobbed, her shoulders shaking. Stephen slapped the steering wheel. What do you want with us? Why are you doing this? We're not wildly rich or famous. Why? Rich enough, Technomage. Now give me my phone back, missus. What do you mean? What do you want? Just tell us, Olivia pleaded, holding out the phone to the man. We'll do anything. Just don't hurt our girls. That's exactly what I want to hear. Now, Stevie boy, take us to the National Australia Bank on Liverpool Street. Olivia and Stephen exchanged glances. It was their bank. So, little ones, how much money are we talking about? How many pennies have you two managed to put away? Stephen opened his mouth to speak, but Olivia beat him to it. About 250,000, give or take a little. Stephen closed his eyes a fraction of a second longer than he blinked. He held his breath. Well, Mrs., have you already forgotten your statement from just a few minutes ago? About being willing to do anything to save your daughters? I think so, because you just lied to me. Stephen watched in the rear-view mirror as the kidnapper shook his head sorrowfully. Let me think about it. What was the license plate number? Oh, yeah, that's right. $322,054.75. Sound familiar? Olivia and Stephen exchanged glances. The amount was accurate down to the last cent. Olivia answered for them. Yes, that's correct. No more lies, Livy, or I might get the idea that you don't care what happens to your rats. Please, Olivia pleaded, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket. Please don't hurt the girls. If you do what I tell you and stop talking nonsense, your girls will be fine. Olivia nodded, tears streaming from her eyes and rolling down her cheeks. The man looked at her glumly. Get yourself cleaned up. You need to step back, and we don't want you giving the game away by bursting into tears, do we? Olivia shook her head, rummaging through her purse for tissues and makeup. Stephen remained silent, risking a glance or two at the kidnapper in the rearview mirror. Twice the kidnapper glanced at him, and Stephen averted his eyes as if surprised. With his peripheral vision, he saw Olivia using a small sponge to apply foundation under her eyes. The ride was fairly quiet. The only sounds were their out-of-sync breathing and the noise of the surrounding traffic. There was a sense of tension in the car. Only one of the passengers seemed disinterested. Stephen turned onto Liverpool Street and slowed his step in search of a parking space. Tensing up, he parked awkwardly in reverse. The man laughed. The expression on Stephen's face became even more grim. For a few moments, everyone was silent, contemplating the bank on the opposite side of the road, some 30 yards in front of them. The sound of the door opening caused Stephen and Olivia to do the same. They stood on the pavement, waiting for directions. Right, missus. It's time to withdraw the money. I don't need to remind you not to alert anyone, do I? No secret messages or strange behavior, so as not to alert the staff. We don't want anything to happen to your two precious bundles, do we? One sign that things aren't going according to my plan and you'll never see your girls again. Understood? Olivia nodded, accepting the briefcase the man held out to her. Tears came to her eyes, but she brushed them away. Got it. Her voice sounded hoarse. She cleared her throat and tried again. Got it. Wait, I just remembered, Stephen said as Olivia took a step toward the curb. Withdrawals over 50,000 require 2 signatures. The man looked at Stephen thoughtfully, as if examining a bug under a microscope, clearly trying to assess his honesty. The same warning applies to you, Dad. If I get the slightest suspicion that you've decided to play me in the style of Bruce Willis in Die Hard, I'm going to unhook your girls. Stephen nodded sourly. Relax, kid. 320 grand, give or take a few, is a small price to pay for your angels. The man laughed. Right? Stephen nodded again. Right. Taking the briefcase from Olivia's hands, Stephen checked for traffic before pulling out onto the road. Halfway there, they had to stop. Reaching the opposite side, he turned to their captor and nodded. Olivia and Stephen entered the bank and headed towards one of the counters. Stephen frowned as he watched Olivia to try to fill out a withdrawal slip. Her handwriting was barely legible. Without a word, he took the receipt from her, messed it up, and tossed it into a small trash can. He pulled out another and began to fill it out. He held out a pen for Olivia to sign. He could see that her hand was trembling. One look at her face told him she was hanging on by a thread. Take a few deep breaths, he whispered in her ear. We can't mess this up. Think about Haley and Hannah. They're depending on us. Olivia nodded, biting her lip. She picked up the pen and signed. Tears came to her eyes. He's going to take everything. Everything we've worked so hard for. Stephen shrugged. What could he say? Why, Stephen? Why us? Why now? Is your firm working on any government or, I don't know, secret contracts? Stephen pondered the question. It was a fair one. He worked in security and surveillance software. Finally, he shook his head. Nothing that would justify it. What about you? Were you involved in any deals that fell through or pissed someone off? Has the CEO or CFO been cut? Have middle managers been sent away? Did anyone at the bank get angry because you were promoted? Olivia looked upset. Tears came to her eyes and she tried to discreetly brush them away with her fingers. I don't know. Acquisitions and mergers inevitably lead to employee and manager layoffs, and a few guys in my department resented me for getting promoted. Sales is still male-dominated, but doing it? Do it? Take our girls? Olivia dropped her face into her hands, her shoulders shuddering in an attempt to contain her emotions. I don't know. I really don't know. Stephen assessed his wife's condition. He was sure she wouldn't get past the bank teller. Go back to the car. I'll get in it. One look at you and the bank will know something's wrong. We can't afford any trouble. Stephen expected Olivia to argue, but she didn't. Throwing one last grateful glance, she lowered her head and headed for the door. Once out the door, she didn't look back. Taking a deep breath, Stephen stood in one of the queues. Here, we've done what you wanted, Stephen said, holding out a briefcase to the man. Now let us and our girls leave. The man looked left, then right, and then shifted his gaze to Stephen. Funny, I don't see anyone in a position to dictate terms to me. The expression on the man's face turned fierce. We're done when I say we're done. Got it, Dad? Stephen pressed his lips together and nodded. The man turned to Olivia and looked her over patronizingly from head to toe. You don't look well, dear. What happened to the hot negotiator? Closer to the action? A money-making machine? A woman with balls of steel? I have to say I'm disappointed. The man snorted derisively. Not so good in a crisis after all, eh? Olivia lowered her head, her shoulders slumping. Stephen had never seen her so defeated, not even after Melbourne. How does it feel to lose everything you've worked for, Mrs.? Olivia lifted her head. She looked devastated. Stephen put his arm around her shoulders. We haven't lost everything, Stephen replied quietly. The money isn't everything. We still have the girls and we still have each other. What a philosopher, isn't he? The man grinned. Keep doing what I tell you to do and you'll keep your daughters alive and well. But we've already done what you asked, Stephen began. But wait, that's not all, the man interrupted him, mimicking the voice and intonation of a famous character from a television advert. Stephen shuddered, preparing himself for another onerous task. What else can we do for you? You've taken all our money. What else can we give you? Oh, that's easy, little lady. I want you to make a delivery for me. Stephen and Olivia looked at each other confused. Why would this man kidnap them and their daughters for a delivery? Money was understandable, but delivery? We're going to Market Street, Daddy. Stephen turned the ignition key and the Range Rover rumbled to life. It cut into the flow of traffic, squeezed into the right-hand lane, preparing to turn onto Pitt Street. The traffic was still heavy. It seemed to be rush hour all day in the city center. They crawled. Stephen was sure they could have reached their destination faster. At the junction with Bathurst Street, he turned right and soon turned left onto Elizabeth. The road passed close to Hyde Park, but today both Stephen and Olivia did not notice its beauty. Their captor, on the other hand, didn't notice it. Maybe you should spend more time at lunchtime, Mrs., in the park. Maybe by the reflection pool. You know, reflect a little on your life choices. What do you mean? Snapped at Olivia, half turning around in her seat. Stephen saw that she was staring intently at the man. Now, little lady. You don't have to come at me. It didn't take me much investigation to find out why you moved from Melbourne to Sydney. Sounds like someone's been a naughty girl. Stephen flinched, and Olivia gasped in shock. She looked at Stephen, who stubbornly kept his eyes on the road. It was a long time ago, and Stephen forgave me. We've been through this. You have no right to dig into our past and rub our faces in it. Oh, but I have, Mrs. That gun gives me a lot of rights, and you would do well to remember that. I'm not one of your office minions. By the way, your minions don't like you very much, neither do your colleagues. I wonder why. Maybe you stabbed too many of them in the back, roughly outmaneuvered them in your rise to the top? Or is it your demanding nature? Olivia ignored the insults. It was pointless to defend herself. Mercantile business was a cruel world. It was a dog-eat-dog world. As a woman, she had to be twice as ruthless as the men she worked with to be taken seriously. After Melbourne, she'd tried to keep the aggressive, competitive side of her nature at work. She looked at her husband's profile. Knowing him as well as she did, she realized he was suffering. The man's mockery of Melbourne had hit the mark. The harshness around Stephen's eyes, the lines of compression at the corners of his mouth, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel. Everything about him spoke of the suffering and effort it took to keep his emotions under control. As she watched his silent suffering, she even forgot about her daughters for a moment. Stephen's pain was her pain, and she hated herself for being the root cause of it and her actions. Hated herself for giving the kidnapper the weapon he used to wound her husband. She was bitterly aware that the events that had happened in Melbourne were still capable of hurting Stephen. Don't listen to him, Stephen. He's trying to drive a wedge between us. Melbourne was so long ago. We love each other. We're happy. We have 2 beautiful daughters. The man clapped his hands. Slowly at first, but then the tempo picked up. And then he laughed. Bravo! Bravo! Olivia lunged at him in fury. She hated being mocked. Why are you doing this? How do you know all this? Why? Why study us so hard? None of us are famous or very rich. Have a good journey, Mrs. I have my reasons, and you'd better keep calm. You don't need to piss me off right now. Not now, when one phone call can, shall we say, change your whole world. Shut up, Olivia. Just do what he says, Stephen said calmly. He asked the man, Where is Market Street? What's the number? 100, the man replied. Do you know who occupies the office on the 5th floor of number 100 Market Street? No. Stephen tensed, realizing that the address might be something important to him or Olivia. He cast an oblique glance at Olivia. She had gone pale and her hands were clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles turned white. Stephen glanced at the man through the rearview mirror. The man caught his gaze and smiled smugly. How about you, Mrs.? Do you know who lives on the 5th floor? Olivia turned away to look out the window, ignoring the question. Surprisingly, the man didn't press for an answer. Instead, he chuckled. The sound was unpleasant. Stephen turned to left and immediately started looking for a parking space. It wasn't easy. Parking spaces in the city's center were always as rare as hen's teeth. But apparently, the gods had taken care of him. Or it was a human being, because he found a spot about 100 yards from his destination. Everyone poured out of the car again. Olivia looked tense and wary. Stephen looked nervous, every muscle in his body tensed like a bow before releasing an arrow. The kidnapper held out a document-sized envelope to Stephen, tightly stuffed with its contents. Olivia stepped back, not taking her eyes off the envelope. Stephen looked at her questioningly. She didn't respond to his gaze. To their surprise, he held out the phone to Stephen. The latter watched them with interest. I may have further instructions for you. Don't you dare make a hero of yourself. Remember who has your daughters. Fifth floor, number 100, he repeated. Olivia and Stephen nodded and turned towards the office building that was their final destination. Oh no, Mrs. You'll be sitting around doing nothing. The hubby will be delivering the goods all by himself. Stephen cast Olivia a questioning glance again. She again evaded answering. Once Stephen was out of sight, the man began. Can you guess what is in the envelope, Olivia? She nodded pathetically. So, who's been a naughty girl? We got too ambitious, didn't we? Or did you just start believing your own delusions? You probably already know, she replied dejectedly. The deal depended on you knowing. The man shook his head, clearly enjoying her frustration. Well, insider trading. You could get in a lot of trouble. Maybe even jail time if your husband delivers an envelope to the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. ASIC doesn't approve of people who cheat and break laws. Olivia hung her head, all the fight gone out of her. If the envelope contained what she suspected, her career was over. Life as she knew it was over. Stephen would be so shocked and disappointed in her. What would she say to the girls? Would Stephen support her in court? Would he wait for her if she had to go to jail? She shuddered as she pictured the bleak future unfolding before her. I'll tell you what, Mrs. I'll give you one phone call to persuade your husband not to deliver that envelope. Couldn't be fairer, could it? Olivia looked up, not knowing if the man was playing a joke on her or not. Hope flickered in her veins as he held out the phone to her. She grabbed it with indecent haste, afraid he'd snatch it from her hands. A quick glance revealed that she had her own phone. She suppressed the guilt within her. Glancing at the man, she realized from the understanding look on his face that the phone had been given to her on purpose. One rule: you don't have to tell him I gave you this chance. Olivia took a deep breath to quiet the trembling in her hands and dialed Stephen's number. Hello? Stephen answered hesitantly. Baby, it's me. Don't give me the letter. Olivia, I have to. He'll hurt the girls if I don't. Trust me, please. Don't give him the letter. Why would you risk the girls' safety? You know I can't ignore his instructions. Baby, trust me. Please, just trust me. Don't give it away. Throw him in the rubbish bin. He'll never know. Olivia looked up at the man as he spoke the last sentence and recoiled at the smirk on his face. What is it about him that made you take a chance on Haley and Hannah? Stephen, I can't tell you. You're just going to have to trust me. Please don't give that envelope away. Please do it for me. It's important. It's important to me, to us. Please just throw the envelope away. The man made a scissor motion across his throat, signaling that time was up. Olivia turned to him with one last request. Stephen, baby, please. Please trust me. Please don't give me the envelope. She ended the call and her whole body trembled as she handed the phone back to the man. Her heart was racing. Would Stephen really honor her request? Would he believe she wouldn't put their girls at risk? Are you even talking to honest people? The man asked mockingly. Ask yourself, who's the real culprit here, you or me? Olivia turned her face away, her cheeks flaming at his taunts. This was too close to the heart. After standing for a moment, Olivia risked a glance at her captor and saw that he was pulling another phone out of one of his waistcoat pockets. Her phone. She recognized the scuff on the bottom corner. He pressed a few buttons. She realized it was her PIN code to unlock the phone. How could he know such things? Olivia? Stephen's exclamation was so loud that Olivia heard it clearly, despite the distance between her and her captor. I'm sorry, kid. It's not the missus. It's your worst nightmare. When you get up to the 5th floor, have your secretary or another office jock take a picture of you handing over the envelope. I don't care how you do it, just do it. Okay, Stephen replied hesitantly. Olivia felt like yelling at Stephen. Who was he supposed to listen to? Her or the kidnapper? Olivia silently forced Stephen to trust her and drop the envelope. He had to know she would never risk the girls. She prayed like she'd never prayed before, even more than she had since Melbourne. Every minute seemed to drag on, straining Olivia's nerves to the breaking point. Why was Stephen taking so long? Finally, she saw him walking toward them. The envelope was gone. Had he thrown it away or delivered it? He seemed to take his time and lowered his head. He avoided looking not only at her, but at the man. Who had he disappointed? Without saying a word, the man reached for the phone. Stephen held out the receiver to him. The man opened it and went to the folder of photos. Olivia was so tense she was afraid she was going to snap. She held her breath, sending up one last desperate prayer. The man held out his mobile phone to her. Stephen appeared on the screen. A chubby brunette stood beside him and, smiling, accepted a thick ochre-colored envelope. Olivia fainted, confused. It felt like the bottom had fallen out in her world. Her bones felt as if they had turned to rubber. Her knees hit the pavement, but she felt no pain. Her face tucked into her palms, her shoulders slumped, and huge gasping sobs burst out. Why? Why did you deliver him? Why didn't you do what I asked? Why didn't you trust me? She wailed, looking up at Stephen, her shoulders still shaking with sobs. Stephen took a step towards his wife, but the man waved him away. Oh, darling, are we feeling a little cheated? A little let down? Not very pleasant, Livy? Not nice that hubby chose me over you. Leave her alone, Stephen growled, and ignoring the man, bent down to help Olivia to her feet. He wrapped his arms around her. Ah, always a good bloke. Did it ever occur to you that maybe that's why she doesn't respect you? Lacks the killer instinct. I'll show you killer instinct, Stephen growled, letting go of Olivia and lunging at the man. They clashed, each landing several blows. Unfortunately, none of the pedestrians stepped forward to try and break up the fight. Most of them avoided them altogether. Suddenly, it was all over. Stephen deflated like a flat tire. Olivia felt his frustration like a gust of cold wind. Get back in the car, both of you, the man growled. You've had enough attention. Fastening the last seatbelt, Olivia turned her head. We've done everything you asked of us. You took all our money and ruined my career. Please, I beg you, let us and our daughters go. We're not going to the police. We just want to go home and get our daughters. No, that won't work. We need to make another delivery. Olivia pitched forward, slumping her shoulders. She couldn't think of what else this man could do to destroy her. Where to? Stephen asked sullenly. To Chatswood, Stephen groaned. Olivia turned to him. Does he have something on you, too? Did you do something illegal? Her voice gave away her concern. She was suddenly afraid that their girls would be left without parents. What would happen to them if both she and Stephen went to prison? Stephen looked shocked and offended by Olivia's assumption. Of course, I haven't done anything illegal. If he has what I think he has, then I've done something stupid, but definitely not illegal. What? Olivia asked, preparing for the worst. Nothing but some immodest internal correspondence about a new client who is so dumb that Tom and I can't figure out how he made his millions. It's the only thing I can think of. That's it. Olivia's relief showed in every line of her body. Enough to get me fired. Ha. Very good, Stephen, the man said. Excellent deductive powers. Now I see why they pay you the big bucks. Too bad they'll have to let you go. Stephen pulled the car onto the road, eliciting a loud protesting honk from the Toyota he'd clipped. Stephen winked at the driver. The kidnapper only laughed. Stephen changed lanes lightning fast and accelerated to make it across the intersection before the light changed from amber to red. God, we're in such a hurry. I can't wait to get this over with. Everyone fell silent. The atmosphere in the car was tense, with Stephen and Olivia deep in thought and the man watching, assessing. Olivia looked out the side window. The man was systematically destroying them. Why? She couldn't figure it out. Maybe he was working for a client Stephen had humiliated in a conversation with a colleague. If so, the revenge was pretty brutal. After all, did it really matter why? By the end of the day, they'd be out of money. Stephen's job would be in jeopardy. And there was a good chance she'd be arrested. And then there are their daughters. What had this man done to them and Mrs. Foster? Olivia prayed for her girls. She couldn't bear the thought of hurting them. Everything else that had happened was bearable, but losing Haley and Hannah was not. Stephen was hanging on by a thread. He just wanted it all to be over. He just wanted to be home with his girls. The rest of the day's aftermath could be dealt with. The trip across the harbor bridge, as usual, turned out to be a nightmare. Once on the North Shore, Stephen drove like someone familiar with the area. He parked around the corner of an office building owned by one of his clients and turned to face their captor. Who does the deliveries? You probably do too, the man muttered, enjoying their discomfort. You know how it's done. Imagine you're handing over a document. No funny games. Blah, blah, blah. Having said that, he held out the phone and an envelope. This one wasn't as thick as the one delivered to ASIC. Have fun, the man teased, laughing at his own joke. Olivia cast a glance at him. They both watched Stephen walk towards the corner like a man on a mission, which, in fact, he was. Why are you being so cruel? If this is about me, why punish Stephen? Why take our girls away? All will be revealed, Mrs. It's those damn mysteries and mysteries again. The man laughed. You need to learn to bring some fun into your work routine. Fun? Olivia shrieked. You call that fun? Calm down, little lady. You don't want to upset me. Not when I have your precious daughters. Olivia immediately fell silent. It went against her instincts. Usually in negotiations, she went straight for the jugular. She liked to embarrass her opponent. Today, however, she felt out of place. She hated feeling so helpless, so ineffective. It felt like a failure, and failure was not in her vocabulary. Olivia stared outside, anxiously waiting for her husband to appear. When he finally rounded the corner, her heart dropped. He looked like a beaten man. She knew he must be feeling the same helplessness, not to mention fear, that she was. As a loving father, a proud and capable man who was used to being in charge, he must be in the hellish agony of being at the mercy of a kidnapper and unable to protect his children. Without a word, he slid into the car and handed the man the phone. He buckled his seatbelt and put his hands on the steering wheel, waiting for further instructions. The man chuckled as he looked at the picture. Geez, kid, you could at least smile. Stephen pressed his lips together, holding back a curt reply. Olivia reached out and gave his forearm a reassuring squeeze. Stephen smiled gratefully at her. Don't you want to ask where to go next? The man teased. You'll tell us when you're ready, Stephen replied sharply. After all, you're in charge. The man laughed. You'd make a good army officer, even if you disagree or hate an order. You still follow it. Stephen looked sharply at the man in the rearview mirror. Yes, I know you were in the army, but not in the field. No, you were safe in a command center where you helped coordinate covert operations. The dirty work was done by others. Olivia looked at her husband. He never talked about his time in the military, only once saying he'd lost too many friends to mentally review his time there. My nerdy computer work saved countless lives, you jerk. Many successful missions were accomplished in part because of the information I provided to the commanders running the operations. Don't you dare mock me or these people, or I'll rip your throat out with my bare hands. And if you offend my daughters, I will rip out your heart. The man only laughed, ignoring Stephen's anger. Yes, I heard that, Captain. Keep your hat on. You don't need to attack me. Keep doing what I tell you to do, and you and your family will be fine. Olivia could see that Stephen was not pleased with the man's answer. Why should he be pleased? It was clear from his words that they still had obstacles to overcome before he would let them go with the girls. She didn't even want to think about the fact that her family wouldn't survive the day. To keep living, she needed to believe. Let's see, the man said, interlocking his fingers as if mulling over a decision. How about we head down to the Hawkesbury River? I know a small inn with a nice view of the water. At those words, Olivia realized that this whole day was about her. She tried to keep her posture straight and her expression neutral. How could this man know? She was so careful. No routine. No specific days or times. No lunches or dinners. Not even coffee outside the office. She was sure no one knew. No one but Logan. Logan, her lover, her colleague. Logan, who was supposed to pick her up from the domestic terminal after Stephen dropped her off. It seemed like an eternity ago. Yes, Logan, her teammate. Together, they'd pulled off 2 big deals in 1 year. Billion-dollar deals for the bank. Olivia felt like punching something. She was furious. Her career was derailed. Her family was in jeopardy. Her husband might be out of a job, and for what? No way. Logan was nothing. He meant nothing. He was just a small reward she allowed herself for a job well done. She did the same for him. He too was married and had children. He loved his wife as much as she loved Stephen. After they had pulled off their first deal, they had had a little smug, week-long affair and saw each other from time to time when the opportunity arose. And having got away with it, both saw no impediment to having another little holiday a few days after the recent deal. It meant nothing, absolutely nothing. But now her whole life and that of her family was at risk because of it. But the realization that the events of the day had something to do with her indiscretion still didn't answer the question of who was behind it. It couldn't be Stephen. Revenge had descended on him as well, and Olivia knew he wasn't capable of hurting her. If anything, he would be the same as he had been after he found out about her affair with her colleague in Melbourne. He would be crushed. Crushed, withdrawn, and wondering what she needs that she's not getting from their relationship. And then Mrs. Foster's phone call rang. She was horrified. There was no way Stephen could have organized something like this. What about Logan? Could he have organized all this to discredit her and ruin her chances of future promotion? He was ambitious and ruthless enough to throw her to the wolves. His drive to succeed was one of the things she found attractive about him. But would he risk her giving him away? And then there was Logan's wife. She came from an old fortune. Her family had connections, and she probably had enough money to pull something like this off. For all she knew, Logan had been through a similar ordeal himself. Olivia gritted her teeth in frustration. Her mind, her brilliant strategic mind, couldn't provide convincing enough answers to determine who was behind the events of the day. "Have you guessed yet, Livy?" the man asked. "What is he talking about, Olivia? Do you know why he's doing this to us?" Olivia blushed, reason fighting her heart. Reason told her that she could turn the situation around. It wasn't the first time she'd been able to snatch victory from seemingly imminent defeat. Her mind told her that she could rethink the events of that day, of the boarding house at Hawkesbury, and spare herself the painful and embarrassing confession. Stephen must never know. Her heart felt differently. It was saying enough was enough. Her choice had caused Stephen and her family more pain than she could have imagined. Her daughters' lives were at stake. It was telling her it was time to come clean and give Stephen the honesty he deserved. "Yes, it is. It's all my fault." "What? What do you mean?" Stephen asked. Olivia flinched. Looking at Stephen, she felt a remorse so deep it was a physical pain. This was her fault. Because of her, the stranger had lost his girls, his money, and Stephen could lose his job. And yet it wasn't his fault in the slightest. Her consequences were deserved. After all, she had broken the law. "Oh my God, this is so hard. I don't know where to start," she began, hoping to find the right words so Stephen would understand and forgive her. "Is that what you're like in the boardrooms, Livy?" the man asked. A man asked. The man asked. Man asked. "Stop dangling in the clouds and tell it like it is, woman." Olivia turned and looked at the man. Stephen was waiting, clutching the steering wheel with his hands. "Stephen, Oh shit. I broke the law in that last deal." You mean you broke it?" the man interrupted. Olivia sighed. "Yeah, it's true. I broke it. I found out insider information about the stock. The deal hinged on the client knowing about it, and I gave him the information." "Let me understand you correctly," Stephen said. "You broke the law and risked our family for a deal?" "When you put it that way, it sounds reckless, incomprehensible. The premium for us was supposed to be at least $250,000. ASIC had no reason to suspect any wrongdoing." Olivia hesitated, seeing the look of disgust on Stephen's face. The expression shocked her. Just because you think you can get away with breaking the law doesn't mean it's okay to break the law. Honesty and integrity is something you should do, even when no one is looking, the man rebuked. Olivia flinched. The irony of her kidnapper lecturing her on ethics and morality was unpleasant. "What else, Mrs.?" Olivia stared at the man with the expression of a woman on her knees begging for mercy, but she wasn't finding it. Hanging her head and closing her eyes, she began, barely audibly speaking. "On these deals, we work as a team, a small, close-knit group, each with specific skills needed for a project or deal. Logan Priest and I led the team. We worked closely together. We, Olivia stuttered. She knew how devastating her next words would be to Stephen. At that moment, she would have given anything not to utter them. "We did it as a sort of congratulations." The car door opened. Olivia lifted her head. She looked to the side, expecting to see Stephen getting out of the car. She was wrong. Stephen was still sitting in his seat, looking at her with something akin to hatred in his eyes. Olivia recoiled as if startled. She turned her head this way and that. The man was gone. All that was left of him was his waistcoat. He disappeared into the crowd. What? Where? She asked confusedly. Looking around the car, she saw that the man had taken the briefcase that held their savings. What's going on? She asked Stephen, gripped by panic. Why did he leave? He took the money. What about Haley and Hannah? How can we get him to let Mrs. Foster and the girls go if he's disappeared? No, he didn't disappear. He didn't take the money. What? Why? But he has the girls. I don't understand what's going on. How does it feel, Olivia? How does it feel not to understand? To not understand anything? To be in the dark about things that make a huge difference in your life? Stephen, what's going on? Stephen ignored her questions. Do you like feeling out of touch? Do you like feeling insecure, scared, confused, helpless? Stephen, what do you mean? What about Haley and Hannah? For God's sake, tell me what's going on. Why should I? Maybe I like having my secrets as much as you like having yours. What's wrong with you? You don't see the point. None of this makes sense. I know, Olivia. I know about Logan Priest. I know about the deal, the insider trading. Just like I know about the previous deal and the fact that you were having a little fling with him when you pulled this one. I know about your dates, and I know all about your Midas touch. I think Logan Priest has it too. Olivia stared at Stephen in bewilderment. Her mind denied it, but her body telegraphed its guilt, sending a deep red blush down her cheeks. Stephen had no way of knowing. She'd been so careful. But he did know. He'd just said he knew. He knew about the other affair with Logan, too, and their chance encounters. And he kept his knowledge from her. She started to feel sick. Her stomach cramped. Olivia opened the car door and leaned out. Foul-smelling, bitter-tasting vomit gushed out, splattering the gutter. Olivia swallowed saliva, trying to wash the sour taste off her tongue. She spat it into the mess she'd already made in the driveway. Olivia took a few slow, deep breaths, trying to pull herself together. Her thoughts were racing. She was trying to come to terms with the fact that Stephen had something to do with the events of the day. The fact that he had been a party to those events had knocked her so out of her mind that it was impossible to believe that this was the same man she had married. But it wasn't him. He knew everything. How could he be so cruel? How could he torture her so horribly? You must really hate me since you organized this man to take the girls away. Where are they? Are they all right? Yes, they are all right. They're at home with Mrs. Foster. That's where they've been since they got back from the zoo. They had a wonderful time, by the way. But Mrs. Foster, she seemed to be frightened. Yes, she behaved quite decently. She thought I was playing a joke on you. She thought it was a wicked joke, but I assured her that you would appreciate it at the end. Oh my God, Olivia whispered. She stared at Stephen, completely unrecognizing him. The Stephen she knew was incapable of such cruelty, such duplicity. You had that man steal all our money. No, I didn't. Stephen reached into the back seat, flipped back his waistcoat to reveal all their phones. Here, go to the banking app on your phone and check. I only withdrew $100. Olivia didn't move. She believed him. It was all coming together. It was all an elaborate hoax. Who is he? No one you know. Olivia realized from his tone that it was pointless to continue to find out the man's identity. And the papers you delivered to ASIC? Do you want me to go to jail? You must really hate me. Stephen shrugged. There was blank paper in the envelope. ASIC got almost a wad of paper from us. She wasn't going to jail. Olivia leaned back in her chair, relief making her weak. So the parcel to your client was fake too? Stephen nodded. Why? Why go to all that trouble? Why do you think? I don't know, Stephen. I don't know what to make of all this. I'm not even sure I know you. No, you probably don't. You've turned me into a new person. Congratulations. I now have that same killer instinct you so admire. Oh, Stephen, please don't say that. I love you just the way you are. Stephen ignored Olivia's statement. Do you really want to know why? Olivia nodded, though the intuition she had relied on so much in the boardroom told her she wouldn't like the answer. I wanted you to experience what I've been feeling for the last 6 to 8 months. What I experienced in Melbourne 7 years ago. I decided it was the only way out. If I just had a revenge affair or divorced you, You wouldn't have known the depth of my feelings. I needed you to feel what my life was like. I needed you to feel lost and abandoned, to make you feel humiliated, betrayed, powerless, not good enough, and everything else a betrayed spouse feels when their partner, the person who is supposed to love them above all else in the world, stabs them brutally in the back. You've been experiencing these feelings for less than 24 hours, and I've been experiencing them for more than 6 months. And that's only once. Oh, Stephen, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I hurt you. I didn't mean to. I didn't want you to find out, Stephen continued, ignoring Olivia's apology. Olivia, two of the worst moments of my life have to do with you. Do you realize the depth of that statement? I've seen death. I was responsible for sending friends and comrades into enemy territory and watching them die for their country. Do you realize that what you did to me was much harder to endure? Few things are worse than finding out that the person you dedicated your life to has betrayed you. When the person you promised to love treats you with utter disrespect. But I haven't disrespected you and I won't let anyone else, Olivia protested, reaching out to touch Stephen's hand. Stephen shook off her hand. I think you and I have a different idea of respect. You think that because you had to go to great lengths to cover up your infidelity, and you didn't let your lover slander me. Yes, I know you stopped him when he tried to do it. That means you treat me with respect. On the other hand, I believe that by going behind my back, you have disrespected my feelings, the vows you have made to me all these years, and my beliefs, which you have been well aware of and adhered to since our engagement, especially after Melbourne. Stephen paused and turned away to look out the window. There was so much he wanted to say, but at the same time, he didn't want to spend the rest of his life having one conversation after another about the collapse of their marriage. He had wasted enough of his life on her as it was. Sighing, he decided to say as much as he could in this one conversation, and once that was done, let her go. If his words moved her, that would be wonderful. A credit to the good guys. If not, he would move on with his life. A life filled with bitterness and resentment is no life at all. It's like swallowing poison every day and expecting your enemy to die. For me, being betrayed is like surviving death while continuing to live and breathe. The first thing that died because of your deception was our past. Which of it was real? Which was a lie? I'll never know, because I only have your word, and it turned out to be false. Twice. Do you know, Olivia, what was the second thing that died? Olivia shook her head, her cheeks wet with tears. The second casualty was our future, the one we vowed to spend together until death do us part. We don't have a future anymore, Olivia. At least not together. You killed him. You turned him into a corpse with every secret meeting, every lie. We can get through this, Stephen. You already forgave me once. Please try to forgive me again. I promise I won't let you down again. I've learned my lesson. We can move if you want. Stephen shook his head. What do you think this is? Third time lucky? On our wedding day, you promised to leave everyone else behind. You broke that promise just a few years later. 7 years ago, you promised me again that you were mine and mine alone. That you would never be unfaithful to me again. You broke that promise too. Olivia, when someone treats you with such disdain, such dishonesty, such disrespect over and over again, something happens to you. Gradually, the way you look at them changes. Your feelings change. They diminish. It's deceptive. It kind of sneaks up on you. I tried like hell to forgive and forget Melbourne. It wasn't easy. It was hard. Really hard, but I tried. First, I tried for you, then I tried for the girls. I wanted to be able to trust you, to look into your eyes and see only the smart, funny, beautiful woman I fell in love with. I didn't want to see the conniving, lying, selfish bitch you showed yourself to be. Funny thing is, I almost managed to do that, and then I noticed the same slightly odd things happening again. Nothing that could be explained, just a gut feeling, a sense of déjà vu. At first, I denied it. No, I said. She wouldn't do that to me again. She wouldn't do that to the girls, but the conviction that something was going on went nowhere. It grew and grew, and when I couldn't stand it and started checking, my worst fears were confirmed. You betrayed me again. You lied to me again. You stabbed me in the back again. After that, all I saw was the bitch. I lost sight of the girl I married. She doesn't exist anymore, if she ever did. There is. I'm here. I'm still the one you married. Please, Stephen, I'm so sorry. It kills me to realize that I hurt you. I got caught up in the game, in winning. I felt invincible. You said yourself I had a Midas touch. Everything I touched turned to gold. Logan was just part of the game. He meant nothing. There was no emotion or connection between me and Logan. It wasn't an intimate connection. It was a sport. It was like a victory lap. Stephen shook his head and looked at Olivia with a look of pity on his face. Again, you and I think differently when it comes to love. All of this is a physical expression of my love. It's personal. Sex is personal. There's nothing more personal than that. Stephen, I love that you think that way. I like that for you, sex and love are connected, but that's not true for everyone. Can you honestly tell me that some of your discontent doesn't stem from pride and wounded ego? Don't humiliate me by telling me I'm hurt and angry because of stupid pride and ego, Stephen growled. I'm not one of your petty cronies. What I felt for you goes much deeper than simple territorial jealousy. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you don't have a monopoly on emotions. In fact, judging by your actions and this conversation, I'd say you're the one who lacks emotion. Olivia recoiled, a look of horror on her face as she saw how deep Stephen's anger ran. Never, not even after Melbourne, had he spoken to her with such fury. For the first time in her life, she felt afraid of him. The car suddenly seemed very small, claustrophobic, and it wasn't over yet. Well, Olivia, you're in luck, because from now on, you don't have to worry about hurting my fragile male ego. Now you can do it as much as you want with whoever you want. I don't care about that anymore. I want and need a partner who shares my beliefs. You don't. And so it's time for us to go our separate ways. But I love you, and despite what you say, I know you love me. Stephen shrugged. There was a time when I loved you. There was a time when I loved smoking too. I really liked it. But I quit when I realized I was doing something stupid, that I was risking my health and my future by continuing to smoke. Staying with you would have been stupid. I would be risking my mental and emotional health and chances of a happy future. It would be foolish to trust you again. It would be foolish to trust you and your word again. I'm not stupid. I was, but not now. You wouldn't be a fool, Stephen. You'd be loving and forgiving. I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Seeing how much you've suffered, how far what I did has driven you, I would never risk it again. Stephen sighed. You don't understand, Olivia. You just don't understand. Let me give you an analogy. If you had to guess the most fantastic thing we did with the girls last summer, what would it be? What did we do that they talked about for months afterwards? Olivia looked puzzled, but answered nonetheless. We went to an amusement park on the Gold Coast, Whitewater World. Right? And the girls couldn't get enough of it. They loved it. Trips to the beach and the river couldn't compare. That's what your business is like. A nice, dependable hubby sitting at home with a lawnmower, up to his elbows in dishes, reading books to two 6-year-olds can't compare to Mr. Three-Fingered Suit, Mr. High-Flying Merchant Banker. You're no longer interested in me. I'm not illegal. I'm not new and unknown. I'm the same old, same old, same old, same old. I'm not who you say I am. Whether you admit it or not, you will always remember your novels. They will always be a delightful escape from family life for you. You'll remember them when you get bored or when I can't prove myself in the bedroom. I can't, correction. I won't try to compete with fantasy. I wouldn't. I swear I wouldn't. Stephen shook his head sadly. You're denying everything, Olivia. Can you honestly tell me that you've never thought about your affairs? Maybe when I'm out of town? Or when you're out of town? Olivia couldn't answer. Stephen was right. She remembered and even masturbated to those memories. Exactly, Stephen nodded, not needing her confirmation to know he was right. It's bad enough you do it when I'm not around. Can you imagine what it would be like to lie next to you night after night and wonder who you're dreaming about? To make love to you and not know if you're making love to me or covering my face with the face of one of your lovers? You can't know how heartbreaking it is because you've never experienced it and obviously you never will. But, Stephen gripped the steering wheel, banging his head lightly against its rim. Olivia looked at him in alarm. Had he completely lost his head? But nothing. Olivia, haven't you learned anything from today? Everything that happened should have made you feel something more than superficial. Pain, fear of loss, powerlessness, betrayal, abandonment, anger. You felt them. You felt them all. I know what I felt. I've been watching you. What makes you think I orchestrated all of this? I don't know. To punish me? Olivia whispered. No, not to punish you. It's because over the last 8 months I've felt all of this and more. I never thought after Melbourne I'd have to experience them again, and not towards you. But I had to. I had to. You did this to me. Remember today. Remember how you felt. Maybe next time a man falls in love with you, you'll think twice before stabbing him in the back. I... Oh God, Stephen, please don't give up. I need you. I love you. I want to grow old with you. With Logan, it wasn't love. It was just entertainment, no more meaningful than going out and playing squash. Olivia, you're repeating yourself. It may have meant nothing to you, but it meant something to me. That's what you keep forgetting. Our relationship wasn't just about you, it was about me. Do you realize that you destroyed my love for you, ruined our life together just to entertain you? It makes me want to rip your heart out of your chest and stomp on it because that's what you did to me. You want to know the statistics? Stephen didn't wait for Olivia's answer. The average person has sex for about 6 months during their average lifespan. Yes, that's right, 6 months. Women spend twice that amount of time just deciding what to wear. That's what you betrayed me for. What you'd spend less time on than matching the damn shoes to the suit. Stephen shook his head as if shaking off the rain. He ran a hand through his hair. That's enough. This isn't going anywhere. You don't understand. Maybe you never will. Maybe you're not capable of it. Stephen's words repeated in Olivia's head like a circle. You don't understand. Maybe you never will understand. Maybe you're not capable of it. She shuddered, remembering the roller coaster ride of fear and uncertainty, isolation and frustration, feelings of betrayal and loss. It had been horrible, the worst she'd ever experienced. And it was exactly what she'd made Stephen feel. Olivia swallowed back tears of devastation. She had hurt the man she loved in the worst possible way. Deep down, she believed that if her indiscretion was discovered, he would forgive her. After all, he had forgiven her last time. How presumptuous of him. Stephen was right. She had disrespected him and disregarded his feelings. She had driven him to extremes, trying to reach out to him and make him understand her. Olivia panicked. Her crimes against Stephen were so great, but she loved him, truly loved him. Stephen couldn't give up on her, on their relationship. He and the girls were the most important things in her life. She had to make him realize that. Stephen raised his hand. That's enough, I said enough. Checking the rearview mirror, Stephen started the engine, switched on the hazard lights, and pulled into the driveway. Do you like making deals, Olivia? Stephen didn't wait for an answer. They both knew the question was rhetorical. Well, here's a deal like this, for example. You buy a flat, I buy one. The girls stay in the house with Mrs. Foster. It's not fair to deprive them of the only home they've ever known just because you couldn't resist rewarding yourself with a little entertainment. Olivia flinched as she heard Stephen utter her own words, spoken only moments ago. From his lips, they sounded stupid, ridiculous. Stephen continued, either not knowing or not caring about her reaction. That means you and I are going to be doing this. Week after week, week after week. No alimony for either of us. No alimony. We open an account into which we deposit equal amounts and from which all household expenses, as well as Haley and Hannah's expenses, are paid. Regardless of personal feelings, we remain civil. I will not say anything negative about you. You will extend the same courtesy to me. If we both attend the same event, we will be polite and cordial. Stephen's calm, impassive voice unnerved Olivia. It was unlike anything she'd ever seen in him before. And, Olivia, make no mistake, there will be no negotiation. This offer is take it or leave it. If you get in my way, fight me. I'll forget all my good intentions to spare the girls from the realization that their mother is a lying, law-breaking whore and hand over the real documents to ASIC. If it were up to me, that's exactly what I would do. There would be no greater pleasure for me than to sit in a courtroom and watch the prosecution nail your and your lover's arses to the wall. I'd laugh when they sentenced you. The longer the sentence, the more I'd laugh. You're just lucky you gave me 2 beautiful daughters. For their sake, I will show mercy. For their sake, I will restrain my desire to bury you. Olivia looked out the passenger side window but saw nothing. She was too late. She'd had her epiphany too late. She realized her defeat. She often saw him on the other side of the negotiating table. Her marriage was over. She had lost. Epilogue. Olivia sat at the front of the church. She looked up and around, admiring the beautiful stained glass windows. Without turning her head in the opposite direction, she knew that at the opposite end of the pew sat Stephen and his wife, Lauren. Lauren. How she hated that woman. She was 10 years younger than her, and as different from her as night from day. Light from dark Olivia, petite from tall Olivia. Blue-eyed and angelic, not swarthy like Olivia, but it wasn't her looks or her age that Olivia hated her for. She despised Lauren because her daughters adored her, because Stephen loved her, because he looked at Lauren the way he had once looked at her. Now Stephen looked at Olivia like she was invisible and had been for over 20 years. Olivia hated the fact that 22 years after their breakup, she still missed Stephen. She wished she could hate him for that. But how can you hate the man you judge all other men by? She hated Lauren for being different, the way her daughters raved about her, hugging her every chance they got. They should have admired her, their real mother. Instead, they were more formal with her. It wasn't fair. Hadn't she shown them how a woman could have both a family and a career? Hadn't she shown them an example of a successful businesswoman? They should look up to her, admire her, respect her. Wasn't she always impeccably groomed? Didn't she remain as slim as she was in her early 20s? Hadn't she broken through the glass ceiling? And had been earning a six-figure salary for most of her life? Didn't she have good taste? Wasn't she cultured? Then why were they honoring Lauren? Lauren, the woman they went to for advice? Sure, the woman ran a chain of fashion boutiques and, as the girls were happy to tell her, had worked her way up from the bottom. But did that give her the right to boss the girls around? Olivia mentally chuckled. Lauren had probably slept her way to the top because she was so damn lacking in killer instinct. Olivia knew what she was saying was untrue and unfair, but she couldn't help it. In her mind, Lauren was usurping her role as wife and mother. Olivia looked to her right at Mrs. Foster's profile. She was no longer young, and Olivia noted with satisfaction that age was catching up with the old bird. Mrs. Foster, that silly old woman, also adored Lauren. Olivia couldn't understand why the girls had insisted that Mrs. Foster be with them today. They hadn't needed a babysitter in about 10 years. It was Stephen's fault. Even after the girls had left school, he had insisted that Mrs. Foster stay in her little cottage. Olivia was deep in thought when organ music began to play in the background. She tried to let the music penetrate her soul and rid her of her bad mood. The reason for the bad mood was the news she had received the previous afternoon. She couldn't believe that the head office had decided to promote the little slut she had raised so well. She had taught that bitch everything she knew herself, and the little upstart had bypassed her and stolen the promotion that Olivia thought belonged to her. This was the third time in the last 5 years she'd been overlooked. It was annoying. The priest clearing his throat brought Olivia back to the present. It wasn't clear to her why Haley wanted to baptize her firstborn, after all. They'd never been church-going people. Olivia could only assume that it was what Haley's husband, Jasper, wanted. Olivia listened to the ceremony half-heartedly as the priest read the usual nonsense. What caught Olivia's attention was the way Haley turned to the assembled family and friends. Their gazes met for the briefest of moments, and then Haley shifted them to her father and Lauren. Olivia heard the priest ask Haley's parents to stand up and step forward. Olivia immediately put her purse on the floor next to her feet and stood up. She frowned. Lauren stood up as well and walked over to Haley and Jasper, clutching Stephen's hand tightly. The hand on her forearm made Olivia lower her gaze. Not you, honey. Haley and Jasper asked Stephen and Lauren to be Cody's godparents, Mrs. Foster whispered quietly. Embarrassed, Olivia almost fell back in her chair. She sat stunned as Haley gave a little speech about why she had asked her father and Lauren to be Cody's godparents. Dad, you've been as perfect a father as one can be. All of Hannah's friends and my friends envied us for having such a great dad. You always knew when to be strict and when to be gentle, when to tell us off and when to be lenient. You always listened to us and let us know that we came first. And then you brought Lauren into our lives and made our little family perfect. Lauren, you are everything I hope to be as a woman and a mother. Whenever I don't know what to do, I ask myself, what would Lauren do? What would Lauren say? I know Hannah does the same thing. And in all the years I've been following this method of problem solving, I've never once been wrong. Thank you for being you. Thank you for loving Hannah, and me like we were your own. Jasper and I both agree that if anything were to happen to us, we couldn't find two people more willing to let them raise our son, our precious Cody. Tears rolled down Olivia's face. Not tears of joy for her daughter or grandson, but tears of sadness, pain, and, yes, anger. How could Haley make a speech like that knowing her mother was in the audience? She must have known how hurtful and humiliating her words would sound to Olivia. Olivia felt like running out of the auditorium. She would have if it didn't mean more people would witness her shame. But even as she simmered with anger and resentment, a small voice tried to hear her. Faint at first, but louder and louder with each passing moment, demanding her attention. What you sow is what you reap. A kaleidoscope of images from the past flashed through Olivia's mind. Each one showed missed opportunities, missed birthdays, missed events, missed breakfasts and bedtimes. Times when she could have been there for her daughters, but instead chose to prioritize work. At first, it had been easier for her to delegate their care to Mrs. Foster, to hide from their sad, accusing eyes, and avoid the endless awkward questions about why she and their father were taking turns living with them. Guilt helped her stay away from home. By immersing herself even more in her career, she took refuge from the shame and sense of responsibility for what had happened. The more hours she worked, the more relieved she felt. Yes, it is much easier to kiss a sleeping child than a hurt and awake one. Later, when the path became well-trodden, everyone began to accept her. And before she knew it, they were out of high school and into university. By then, they didn't need her anymore. The realization of this struck and hit hard, knocking the strength out of her. For almost all of her adult life, she had been making the wrong choices. She had chosen avoidance over acceptance and building relationships with her daughters. She chose material success over love. She chose money and prestige, status and career over family. A career that had been dying a slow and painful death for 5 years now. Olivia leaned against the hard wooden back of the bench. She was alone. They were with each other. With her speech, Haley made it clear that in her eyes, Olivia wasn't her mother, not in the real sense of the word. She was only an egg donor. Olivia could no longer avoid the truth. She had failed in the most important role of her life. Steve, Lauren, the girls, and their spouses had a close-knit circle of love and support. She, on the other hand, had none. She would never be a part of their circle. She would never know love the way they knew it. Defeat and loss, Olivia discovered, were worse than death. Death offered a choice. Defeat and loss had to be faced. The end of suspension of disbelief. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next videos.